Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission, and we hope you will, by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on GoodPod, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. Two wonderful guests coming your way. First up, Lela Nargi will be here to celebrate the Lonely Goose. Later in the show, we'll be meeting Riley Cross, who'll be celebrating the Swamp of Doom. Before we invite our guests into the studio, we have a big announcement. We have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read. We're going to the Dinosaur Forest by Marie Nichols and illustrated by Penny Weber is our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. This is a delightful children's book that captures the essence of adventure and the special bond between a grandson and his grandmother. Aimed at children aged 3 to 5, this 44-page story takes young readers on an imaginative journey filled with excitement and discovery. The narrative centers around Bracken, a young boy with a passion for adventures, and his favorite companion, his grandmother Graham. Together they embark on a whimsical dinosaur hunt in the dinosaur forest. Despite initial apprehension, Graham is encouraged by Bracken's enthusiasm, leading them to stomp, roar, and explore the forest in search of prehistoric creatures. Their playful expedition takes a thrilling turn as they encounter dinosaurs like Stegosauruses and Triceratops, prompting them to summon their courage and navigate unexpected challenges. Marie Nichols' storytelling beautifully portrays the dynamics of intergenerational relationships, highlighting how bravery and imagination can bridge age gaps. Weber's vibrant illustrations complement the text, bringing the dinosaur forest to life with vivid colors and expressive characters. The book not only entertains, but also encourages young readers to embrace their creativity and face fears with confidence, adding additional educational value. The kids, parents, and educators on our Certified Great team love this book, gave it 5 stars. Check it out today. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest by Marie Nichols. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Woofy and the Dinosaur Adventures, delightful children's book written by Helen Rogerson. Woofy awakens suddenly to a feeling that his friend Bun needs him. When he arrives at the place his nose leads him, Woofy is confused and doesn't find Bun right away. Then a shout from above leads to an amazing experience as he puts his paleontology skills to work. Together, he, Bun, and a cat that hangs around the site wrap up a wonderful adventure involving a T-Rex skull and a very cool twist of an ending. The story is told in a lyrical style that incorporates actual fossil hunting concepts and vocabulary. If you like dinosaurs, friends who help, and adventures, you will love this book. You can check out Woofy and the Dinosaur Adventures and all the Woofy books at unpackyourownhappy.com. Hey families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. Join us right now from New York City. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's called The Lonely Goose. Please welcome to the show, Lela Nargi. Hey, Lela, how are you?
Hi, Jed. I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
Delighted to have you on. I have to tell you, I'm seeing from my notes that this book is about a Canada goose. And I have to be honest, they're not one of my favorite creatures.
I think that you're not alone there, and I'll say it's actually about two Canada geese, because it's about the relationship that these animals have with each other. They breed for life, or mate for life, which I think is kind of a fascinating tidbit from the animal kingdom.
I do too. Now it's Canada geese and penguins. Are they also mate for life?
I think penguins do too, and I think that there are quite a number of birds that do that too. I don't have a working list of animals that mate for life, but I think that it's not uncommon.
Okay, well now there's a quality I can get behind. So maybe you might be able to turn me on my opinion of Canada geese by the end of this interview. Tell us about the story we're going to read.
So The Lonely Goose is a story about a pair of geese that meet and start their lives together, and they raise chicks as Canada geese do, and migrate and come back and do it all over again for many years. Then one of them dies, which is obviously something that happens to all of us. And then the goose that's left behind mourns. I mean, this is actually, it's written as a story, a narrative story, but it's factual. And so the goose who's left behind, she mourns, she stays and doesn't migrate with the flock that year. And then in the spring, when all the other geese come back from her normal flock, including probably some of her offspring, she encounters another widowed goose, and they meet and they start all over again. So she gets another chance at being mated and having more chicks, and life goes on.
You're mentioning migration. I think one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan is that at least the ones around here, they don't migrate anymore. They're very comfortable. And between me and you, Lela, when they poop, it's about as big as a chihuahua. And
yes. And I think that a lot of people find geese and, frankly, lots of other birds and lots of animals to be nuisances. But my feeling is that they're our companions on this planet. Part of the reason some geese and other birds that might traditionally migrate aren't doing that anymore is because of climate change. And our human effects on habitat for a lot of these animals when we build or convert land for farming or do so many things that humans do to perpetuate our existences, we make things pretty hard for creatures in the natural world that are not human. So there are reasons they stay behind. In the back of my mind, there's another fact about some geese that had their wings clipped and had been prevented from migrating. I don't remember the full story enough to give you a real factual blow by blow, but some of this is our doing, and we maybe didn't think of the consequences of what we were doing and how that would affect these other animals.
Yeah, I'd always thought that it was because humans feed them, and they just, there was no more need to migrate because they were able to survive on our scraps and, whatever we made available to them.
That might be part of it, but also as the weather is warmer for them, and there's no need to go anywhere. But remember, migration. Yes, it's a search for resources, but it's also a time when birds go. They go well, here in the Northeast, where you and I both are, we're on the Atlantic Flyway. There are 4 flyways in North America, stretching, across the country toward the west. We're on the Northeast Flyway. And so, habitat, the range of migration varies depending on where, like, your home flock starts. It might not go very far north. When they do go north from here, it's to raise their chicks. It's, warmer, there are better food and other resources for them, but it's also, it's the fabric of their DNA. It's what they were designed to do. And so I think that pull is very strong.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated. We here in Boston, I live as far away from downtown Boston as you can be and still be within the city limits. On the other side of my property is a wildlife sanctuary, and we are very much on that flyway. And a couple of times a year, it's absolutely amazing. Our backyard is filled with thousands and thousands of birds who are just taking a rest before they continue either north or south, depending what time of year it is. I'm fascinated that these beings with such tiny, tiny brains are able to navigate, get up and down, where they're migrating to, build nests that are identical to, another bird's nest. It's just, I'm just amazed and blown away.
I love birds so much too. It's so cool. And here in Brooklyn, people don't really think of cities as being places to see wildlife. But we have, I'm sure you have it in Boston too, we have resident hawks, we have bald eagles here, we have all kinds of, water birds that actually come down and stay here. It's warmer than it is in the Arctic, which is their breeding grounds. I've seen snowy owls on the beach here. And then, of course, migration season, and it kind of blows your mind when I go out with my binoculars to my favorite spots. Like, there are days when I can't believe it. It's like, I understand how Pokemon happened, or Pokemon Go. You remember that game everybody was playing a few years ago, where it was like, spot these things, and there were days, there are days when I go out and look at birds, and I just can't, like, it's like a video game. Like, I hate to make that analogy, but it's really so fast and so furious, and there's so many different kinds that it's just like, it's awe-inspiring. Like, you almost can't take it in all at once. But as much as I love the migrating birds and love seeing all of this beauty and this diversity coming through, and also remembering that cities can play this really important role along the way for these birds that move. Part of the reason I wanted to write The Lonely Goose too, I mean, I obviously don't dislike geese strongly like you do. I don't have strong negative feelings about them. I understand why people do. But, as a writer and somebody who writes about the natural world quite a bit for a living, both for grown-ups and for children, we tend to write a lot and think a lot about endangered species and all of these, quote unquote exotic species, things that we don't have, like pigeons here living among us. But I wanted to give a shout out to the lesser loved birds and other animals that live with us that also have these amazing lives and do these incredible things, and I think are worthy of our respect and our understanding.
Yeah. I think I have to be honest. I don't hate Canada geese. It's like I don't like walking the minefield. There are a couple of spots where we like to walk, and after the geese have spent a couple of days there, it's like walking in a minefield. But I'm fascinated when I see these flocks of geese, how many geese are there. We have some big flocks here around Boston, but I travel a lot, and down in Princeton, New Jersey, there is a corporate headquarters of some kind, and the flock of geese that call that front lawn their home is enormous. There are hundreds and hundreds of birds in that, and I'm fascinated when I'm watching them fly, and they're in this perfect V formation, and they seem to take turns leading the formation. And again, that they're able to do this, and we don't understand how they communicate with each other, how they remember how to do all these things. It's just fascinating. And it was one of the things that I used to love to talk to my kids about when they were kids, was just like, how do you think that happens? And there's so much in nature that we can do that with.
It's very cool. And I just want to say one thing about that poop minefield that you talked about, which obviously is annoying. I don't really love that either. But think of poop as a resource. It's actually nourishing the soil. It's putting nutrients into the soil. It's part of the natural cycle of things, keeping our planet healthy, keeping our soils and plants healthy. In terms of the number of geese and how they migrate, I know. And right now in New York City, maybe you have them in Boston too, we have a lot of visiting brant, which is another kind of goose that they come from the Arctic. They fly really far and they hang out in the water here. And you see these huge groups of them. They're called rafts of geese. That's the whatever what the word is, the name for the group. The multiples of geese is it's a raft of brant when they're on the water, and hundreds, like as far as you can see out into our rivers and sometimes the ocean too. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see them. And then what we know about migration actually is pretty incredible. We know that there are at least two things happening. One, well, geese fly during the day, and so water birds like geese fly during the day. And so how they navigate has to do with the pull, Earth's magnetic pull on their bodies. Songbirds, they migrate at night, and that's also kind of incredible too. They also use the magnetic pull of the Earth, but they also use the stars to navigate. It's like they have a star map that they follow. And so I'm gonna guess that there's something else going on with water birds too that's helping them. It's not just the magnetic pull, like songbirds, probably some other dynamic thing happening. But yeah, we do know some things, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Now, the songbirds who use the sky and the stars to help them migrate, is the light pollution that, kind of makes the stars disappear in places like New York City and Boston, does that interfere with their migration?
Yeah, it does, and maybe not quite the way you meant the question. What happens when they come to cities is that they get disoriented by the lights at night.
Okay.
It's really confusing to them. So one of my favorite stories actually in New York City is, peak migration season is for a lot of these songbirds in the fall, obviously, and it coincides in New York with September 11th, and we have a tribute of light here down at the site of the World Trade Center, 2 pillars of light that go up into the sky. And the birds become very disoriented. They get caught in the lights, actually, sometimes thousands of them. But New York City Audubon, which has a new name now, they've changed their name to disassociate with Audubon, but still part of general, the broader Audubon Society. They have an agreement that they worked out very early on with the families of people who were, who lost somebody in the World Trade Center all those years ago. They have people who lie out at night for the week that the pillars of light are going into the sky with their binoculars, and when a certain density of birds is caught in those lights, they turn the lights off for a few minutes to release them. So it's why organizations like Audubon have been trying to get lights out legislation to try to get cities and landlords to agree during migration season to turn out lights. It's tricky. There's a lot of people who work on this, and it's an uphill battle, but little by little, that's one of the things that these organizations work toward, is having dark skies when the birds are up there.
I would love to be able to see more of the stars at night. I remember being a kid and looking up and being amazed at how many, as Carl Sagan used to say, billions and billions of stars surround us, and really can't see much these days in cities.
That's true. But I also want to say something too about that scene of migrating that you were talking about, all of those geese. I was driving, I forget where I was driving from a couple of years ago. It was fall, it was migration season again. And in my car, I looked up and it was like a bird superhighway. It was amazing. There were flocks of geese, many different kinds of geese and ducks up in the air going in different directions. Well, all heading south-ish, but, with their own flocks and their own way. Hawks and raptors also migrate there, and I could see raptors and all kinds of birds, and the sky was just thick with all of these different groups of birds and individual birds on the move. I haven't seen anything like it since, and it was the first time I had ever noticed like how much movement there was in the sky during migration season. But you don't have to wait till, if you can't see them at night, sometimes you can hear them. But you can see that during the day too. And if you like geese, you can look up and see a lot of movement sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Where you are obviously passionate, not only about geese, but about wildlife and nature. Where did that come from? Is this always something you've been passionate about?
That's a good question. Yes, but I think it was probably a slow burn. I think for so many parents probably say that when their first kid was born, they started to see things through their children's eyes, and that certainly happened. My daughter is now 21, and I remember how dedicated she was. Like, we could never just leave the house and go somewhere. As soon as she was able to walk on her own, like, it was like we left half an hour early to go anywhere, because she would stop and pick up leaves and look at pigeons and look at whatever else was going on. And whatever, I had the time, I was just hanging out with her, and it was really cool to see what she was drawn to, and that ability to slow down and really look at the world around you, which your children, with their natural curiosity can really pull out of you. I think that's when I started to really look a lot closer. There are a lot of people in my family who love animals. I have, birders going way back. But I was never interested in doing it with them. I think just too many people were involved. I like going out and doing it by myself as a solitary exercise.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of that came from being with my daughter and having that very peaceful, intense looking time to just sort of see what was there. And that's sort of how it's progressed over time, I think, just looking closely and wanting to see.
What a beautiful gift. We've talked a lot about, obviously we talk a lot about what we can do for our kids and introducing them to things, but I think it's really important for us to remember that our kids can introduce us and reintroduce us to some amazing parts of this world.
Definitely, and they can teach us patience, which sounds oxymoronic, but I think it's really true, if we let them lead the way sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. What kind of conversations do you think families can have as they're reading The Lonely Goose, whether it's inside snuggled up on a couch or maybe alongside a river or a lake where they might be able to look out and see some geese?
I think it's such a cool opportunity when you read out loud to your kids about anything to use that as a jumping off point to talk about what have we seen today? What might we see tomorrow? What are some things that we see that we expect and things that we see that we didn't expect? And I think that, I don't know, I love that whole idea of like sort of a treasure hunt through your own neighborhood, and maybe part of that's remembering, and maybe it's something that you build into your routine when you go out during the day, going from one place to the other to sort of look and see if you see something new. Also, behavior of animals among us is really an opportunity. Like, yeah, okay, you can see a pigeon or a bunch of pigeons or some sparrows or any of these other things that are so common in our backyards and on our streets. When you really start to look at what they're doing, you see them doing some wild stuff. I remember I had sparrows on my fire escape. For a very brief time, I had like some suet out there in the winter. But I had to take it down, one, because of the squirrels. I think that's a pretty like well-known urban phenomenon, the squirrels like just
Yep.
busting into everything. But watching the sparrows, like they would bicker. Like they were so mean to each other. And like, I remember one trying to fly away and another one catching its wing in its beak and dangling it over the fire escape, the rail of the fire escape. Like they do some funny stuff, like not just noticing what's there, but take a few minutes and get to know some of these, these characters. They are with us, for many days and weeks and months, and you can get to know them.
Yeah, yeah. I think you might be turning me on the whole idea of geese. I'm getting close.
Okay.
Now, what I would really need you to do is, and it would be very difficult, is to turn me on my opinion of wild turkeys, because here in Boston they are vicious. They attack people.
Really? That's wild. So I go to Cape Cod every summer and have for 35 or 36 years. And there are a lot of wild turkeys up there now too. But they've never intimidated me. They've never come after me. I mean, they're big. Like it's crazy how big they are. They're like the size of almost my height.
Yeah.
But they just seem kind of like, I don't know, kind of goofy and gaggling around. I've never felt threatened by them. That's interesting.
It must be a city phenomena, because there are videos on social media, and we've had reports in the news about people being trapped in their cars because they're surrounded by turkeys or chased down the street by a turkey. It's quite comical.
I guess that is funny. I mean, it makes me wonder too if, we can sometimes unwittingly provoke animals. So I wonder what's happening. I wonder if they feel like their turf is being violated in some way, or if people just need to back off. I mean, yeah, give them their space.
Yes. Well, I give them their space. I give all the creatures in my life the space that they need. And I think that's a healthy way to live. We can share this world together.
Absolutely. I hope so.
Yeah. Wow. Tell me, where can we go to find out more about the Lonely Goose and find out more about you?
I have a website. It's my name, lelanargi.com, LeLaNargi.com. There's some information about the Lonely Goose and some of my other books for children there. There's information about what else I do with my time. And the book will publish on March 10th, so coming up. And there is a Random House page for that people can find online.
And it's available for pre-order right now?
It's available for pre-order through Random House Studio and probably anywhere you can order books.
Awesome. What a great addition to a family library. I think this would be one of those books that families would want to read again and again, and especially outside when we're in nature.
Well, and I would be remiss if not to mention the illustrator who did the most beautiful job. It was a lot of goose, you know what I mean? That's what I kept thinking when it was like each page, goose, goose, goose. But Ann Hunter, who is a remarkable illustrator of the natural world, I was fortunate enough that she illustrated my book as well. And yeah, it's a lot of goose, but she's got them doing really sweet and silly and lovely and beautiful things. There's a line in the book that says the world was just the two of them. And when she shows the two of them, it's their butts in the air as they're diving into a pond to forage for something under the water. It's just her illustrations are so lovely, and I'm so lucky that she really was the one who brought it to life.
Awesome. You know, I want to tell you this sweet goose story. When my son was in kindergarten, the school that he attended, it was very close to a small little river. We have lots of nature in this part of Boston, and one of my son's friends saw the remains of a goose who had been hit going across the street from the river into the grasses, and he wrote a letter to the mayor who lived in our neighborhood, and there is now a goose crossing sign and it's been there for the last 25 years.
I love that. That's like make way for ducklings.
Yes.
Also from your part of the world.
Well,
That's great. I love it.
we've had a great time speaking to the author of The Lonely Goose, a brand new picture book from our friend Lela Nargi. Lela, thanks so much for being with us.
It was my pleasure. Thanks, Jed.
Hey, my friends, would you like to bring a little warmth and magic into your home? Let me introduce you to Welsh Mountain Candles, hand-poured on a working Amish farm in Lancaster County. These all-natural, toxin-free candles are made from palm wax with a stunning crystallized glow, rich coconut apricot wax for a creamy finish, and essential oils for a pure, refreshing scent. Whether you're winding down, setting the mood, or just love a great candle, Welsh Mountain Candles are crafted with care and made to be shared. Visit welshmountaincandles.com. Use the promo code JED10 for 10% off your order today. Light up your home with Welsh Mountain Candles, where every candle tells a story. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival's podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from beautiful Edison in the state of New Jersey. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new middle grade novel. It's book one in her Cursed Champions Club series. The name of the book is The Swamp of Doom. Please welcome to the show, Riley Cross. Hey, Riley, how are you?
Hi, good to be here. Great to be on with you today. I'm excited. Love the name of your podcast too, Reading with Kids. That's fabulous.
Well, you know, we're all about encouraging families to read with their kids, even long after they become independent readers, because it's just such a wonderful opportunity to bond and to start conversations. And I'm imagining a fun book like The Swamp of Doom would be perfect for a family to read together or co-read.
Yeah, so I'm a language arts teacher, a little bit of my background, and both of my kids actually helped me design the characters in this story, which was such a unique experience. I'd always kind of imagined a character who lived in this radioactive swamp, and just sort of the funky things that might happen in her life because of it, and her bad luck power that she gets ironically from this radioactive swamp is everything goes wrong. It's Murphy's Law. And I noticed with my kids, because I have two littles, I have a 9-year-old and I have a 5-year-old. And when one thing goes wrong, it can kind of handle it. But when things happen in a series like that, a series of misfortunate things just happening one after another, we lose it. And even as adults, we do too. But as for kids, it's this is the worst day ever. There's multiple things going wrong. So I kind of wanted to write for my kids, to show them that we're more than the sum of our bad days. And just let them have some input into the characters. There's Alacarte, half alligator, half shark is one of the main characters in the story. My son was like, "Can you make an Alacarte?" And I'm like, "What is that?" Just love to see their imagination. My daughter's like, "I want a mermaid." So I'm like, "Perfect. I got a radioactive swamp. She can swim around in there." And just allowing them to have insights and also a story that I think really matters.
Yeah, I love that idea of creating this book with your kids, letting them, kind of create some of these characters. That must have been an awful lot of fun.
It was. And at one point with the alligator shark character, I was going to have him do something sort of aggressive, and my son was like, "But mom, just because things are scary doesn't mean they really are." And I was like, "Oh, like we listen to our kids, their imaginations, like they kind of surpass us as adults. Like I'm trying to teach my kids a lesson, but my kids are teaching me lessons through the characters and their thoughts on it. And every night I'd read them a chapter of what I had half drafted. And then they'd be like, "Can you tell us more?" I'm like, "No, mom, you've got to actually write it," and I love doing that with them. It's just like that storytelling engagement, and they'll still talk about the story because of that. And, or they're like, "What will happen next? Let's think about the next book." And that's what I really want from my kids, not, as a language arts educator, as a mom, like let them experience a story, let them be a part of that story as much as possible.
I'm wondering, as a teacher, do you have the flexibility and the freedom to kind of do that with your students, to, really engage them and let their imaginations run wild?
I do as much as I can. For creative writing, which is a class that I dearly love to teach, I'm able to do a lot more of those sort of things with my students, sort of interactive stories, coming up with things and then seeing where they'll take it. I like telling them, like, "Here's a trope. Now flip it upside down on its head. What do you want to do with it?" And then for like my regular courses where I actually have to teach essays and things like that, I really try to infuse as much fun and vibrancy in it as I can. I think it's just the writer in me. I can't help it. Like, how would we end this story? Let's write a script. Let's collaborate with your group. Come up with another ending for these characters, and just letting them, because I feel like once you get them in the story, you've got them hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we really want. And I always tell them, like, the best way to become a better writer is to just be a better reader. Just read anything. Read stories that matter, things that just capture your interests. And, for my kids, I'm pushing that early. I'm like, "What books do you want? Let's go." So we'll put them in the cart. Let's go. Because I want them to have that imagination. I think it's important. And we lose that skill. And as a teacher, I'll see this too. Like students will come up to me like, "How do you want me to write?" No, darling. How should you write? How do you want to write? It's not what would please me or make me happy, but like, where's your imagination? Find that. Go back to that wonder, that excitement of figuring out, like, I feel proud of this piece. And then you'll have writing down.
Yeah.
That's my heart.
It's fascinating. I made an observation, oh boy, a couple of years ago. I was writing an email or I think I was crafting the email in as a Word document first to make sure it was right, and then I was going to paste it in. And I noticed that I just very quickly, what I was going to be sending as an email was like 300 or 400 words. And it was just boom, it came out. And I remember dreading that 300-word essay that I had to write in high school and thinking, this is torture. How can anybody be expected to write 300 words on one subject? This is crazy. And now we do it like nothing.
Yeah, I think it's about removing those like mental barriers to writing. It's like it has to meet someone's expectations, or it must check off all these boxes. And I think it just shuts us down. And so my philosophy is read what you love, re-experience that joy, because if you don't have the joy in what you're writing, it's just not going to flow with you. And then just take it one bit at a time, like actually enjoy the process of it. As an adult, I have to write a lot of boring things sometimes, myself, I you have to write reports or this or that. And so for me, when I'm trying to write those things that's shutting down my creativity, I'm like, how can I have some fun with this? How can I add a little bit of humanity in there and just a little bit of snark and a little bit of fun? And So that's really what I do. I'm just like, how can I approach this unconventionally? I'm actually shout out to my job for accepting my application because I was like, I'm having some fun with this. I'm just gonna be creative with this question, and I guess they liked it. They're like, stick that one in creative writing, and that's what she can teach. But I mean, it's just you've got to have that joy in your heart, and for me, writing this book was honestly a joy. I had written a YA novel and it was much darker and more dystopian. And then when it came to writing middle grades, I'm like, I'm just going to embrace the fun along with the sort of dystopian themes that I love in my writing, but like just embrace that sort of fun. Like, what if there was a radioactive swamp? And what if we're all stuck in it? And what if the only one who can rescue us is probably one who's going to mess it up because that literally is her power set. The worst things it can't get worse until she enters the room, and yet she's got to figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that, just sort of like connecting back to that joy.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like an awful lot of fun. I'm imagining that the series, it just gives you that kind of license to kind of go and create your own universe.
Yeah, I'm imagining a world, of course, because I'm a dystopian sort of sci-fi writer. I'm imagining a world where we have destroyed it, but, that people adapt. They're called Zone 13 or Zonites, and they live in this radioactive swamp. So they've sort of developed a certain immunity towards it, but it's sort of like, it's funky. We've got like cats with two tails. You've got three-eyed toads jumping out of the fountains. The people living there are sort of on the edge of bizarre, but I think that's what makes them unique and fun. And Blip, or Bad Luck Princess, is just filled with bad luck. Like, everything goes wrong, and she finally learns to accept that towards the end, is like, this is kind of a part of who I am, and when things go wrong, I'm just more than that, more than just the girl who makes things go wrong. Just sort of embracing that and understanding that, like, when you have a team around you, that's where the Cursed Champions Club comes in, her and her friends, that you're going to be okay. You're going to make it through those tough times, and you're going to make it through those barriers. That was my hope.
Do you find that as a teacher, that there are a lot of kids who don't have that hope, that really need inspiration?
I think we all have to be reminded of it, because, you're walking into your classroom and you're thinking, I'm just going to teach X, Y, Z today. And things get turned upside down when you realize the kid in the back of the classroom might need a little more attention today. And maybe the rest of the class needs to work on something because you need to talk to them, because maybe they need encouragement. Things are going on in their life, or they finally open up to you. And I think we all need that message that, like, somebody sees us, somebody cares. We're more than just someone in a line going through our own problems and sort of suffering invisibly. And I would say we all need that reminder. I think we know it's there, but we forget it's there. Mm-hmm. We forget to have that little bit of hope and joy that, like, yes, there's a lot going on right now, but, I'm not alone in this fight. I'm not alone in this struggle right now.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a deep passion for kids. Are you teaching this middle grade age?
So I actually teach high school.
Okay.
So I've actually always taught high school, but I work a lot with middle grades ages, like my local community church, volunteering things, VBS at my church. Like, I'm always like trying to go out there because, like, my kids too are growing up so fast. I'm like, I need to meet them where they are to understand who they are at every level. My sweet little kindergartner is going to be shifting, and my 9-year-old is shifting into like this weird in between stage. And you've got to be there for them wherever they are and what they're going through. And that's my heart, is like just helping kids become balanced adults. Mm-hmm. We only get one childhood, and I found, like, for me in my childhood, like, books was one of the ways I escaped. It was one of the ways that I was able to deal with what was going on. And in a very real way, I think it prepared me for some things that were coming at me. I was actually just reading a quote today by C.S. Lewis saying, like, we can't prevent things from happening, but in the meantime, can't we give children at least stories of hope and heroes, give them at least those stories. That way, when these things come, they'll have those memories. They'll be ready. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah, I agree. One of the neat things that we've talked about here on Reading with Your Kids is the fact that books and stories, especially spooky middle grade stories, give kids an opportunity to face some of the demons that they may encounter in their life. And just imagine, well, if I was in this situation and I was in a radioactive swamp and I meet a Alacarte, what would I do? How could I deal with it?
Exactly. And it's about facing that. And I think this is going to sound silly, but growing up, I remember feeling like there was always a monster under my bed. Like there had to be one. And it wasn't until you get off the bed and look underneath and tell yourself, look, there's nothing there, that you can actually conquer that fear. And I think for kids, it's the same thing. Like you said, it's facing those shadows, but in a sort of a humorous way. I was always a fan of the early, Addams Family, like the little black and white movie reruns. I would watch those constantly as a kid. And I don't know, there's something that always kind of drew me to it. So when I wrote The Swamp of Doom, I kind of relied on those childhood memories where we were facing kind of scary things, but in this humorous way. Because honestly, there's really only two choices in life, and that's laugh about it or cry about it. And sometimes if you can be armed with a little bit of humor, you can make it much further.
Yeah. I'm curious, what kind of conversations do you think families could have over the dinner table as they're co-reading The Swamp of Doom?
I would love to have families talk not just about the things that go right in your day and perfect in your day, but about the things that go wrong too. How we might have felt in those moments, and just have sort of that rallying around where it's not this perfect family expectation. You always look up to your parents and they get things right, but let's just be honest with each other. Let's be real for a moment. I struggled with this today. I was feeling this way. And I think it builds a lot of empathy, and it builds a lot of reassurance. For my kids, I want to hear about their day, but I also want to hear about how they felt through that day. So I would hope it would spark a conversation about that, but also maybe just imaginative, okay, if you had superpowers, what would it be? Because we also kind of need that little element of fun in our lives too. Mm-hmm. If you got a secret message stuck on your sandwich today, what would it say? Sort of thinking about what could happen as well.
I like that. I like that a lot. What's you mentioned that this is the first book in your Cursed Champions Club series. Are we going to meet new characters, or is it the same cast of characters going to lead us through the other books?
We're going to stay with the same main character and her tight-knit crew, but there's going to be a bunch of colorful characters that come alongside as well. I kind of believe in building upon the characters you already have, especially that established world setting, but also exploring what other Zone 13 people live here, and what are their superpowers, and also accepting as some of the characters get older, some of their powers are going to kind of come into play. We know Bad Luck Princess is bad luck, but what about the other people on her crew? And one of them has no powers, so how is she going to handle that? She's considered normal. And so just sort of exploring those characters a little bit more. And I definitely want an exploding library scene. I'm not really sure, but I can picture it in my mind right now. There's books and pages flying, and some stone gargoyles. So that's my secret little book to reveal. We're going to have some explosives.
Going back to what we first started talking about and your kids helping you design characters, has either your son or your daughter suggested a character where you said, no, we can't, no, there's nothing I can do with that character?
Not yet, because I kind of like the challenge. For me, it's I like to do even writing contests where it's hey, fit this, and this into a story. And you're there's no way this fits into a story. And then somehow it does. So I like to have it as sort of this open dare. Some of the kids who have read my book have even reached out to me and said, hey, could you have this happen? And I'm like, okay, for you, yes. We're going to have a new character now named after you, or whatever the case might be. And I like those kind of challenges because I have a plot in mind, but I'm also very much right by the seat of your pants. So I like being open to that creative flow, see what will happen. Because I think that's how kids do it. They don't really plot every detail out. If you watch like my kids play or whatever, it's just like it could change so quickly and so fast. And I'm like, wow, how did we get from here to here? But I really want to sort of keep it open to a child's imagination, not just to be limited by my own constraints.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Swamp of Doom and all the other great things coming from your imagination.
Love that. I would start with YouTube. There is a book video you can watch, like a little book trailer for the Swamp of Doom. You can order at Barnes & Noble. You could order it on any place that actually sells books. You could go to my publisher's website, Monarch Publishing. We will be releasing, and I've got to work on that, but very soon I'll be releasing like guided questions for parents to use while they're reading this book with their kids, maybe some activities and things like that. So it could be a little more even educational or, sort of a together moment, let's talk about this. And you can follow me on Twitter or X or Facebook, all the places. So far, it's just the same writing handle. So it's @WritingByRiley.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Swamp of Doom. It's a new middle grade novel, first in the Cursed Champions Club series. Our guest has been Riley Cross. Hey, Riley, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Great way to make sure that you don't miss a moment is to subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. Of course, you can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Good Pods, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you find your favorite shows. You can find the Reading with Your Kids podcast. And of course, if you are listening to us on the AM/FM 24/7 radio network, we'd love it if you could let your local station manager know that you appreciate them carrying Reading with Your Kids. And when you subscribe to Reading with Your Kids on whatever app or apps, you can subscribe on multiple apps. We'd love for you to leave a review. It really helps us find new families to join in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Of course, we'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, Facebook.com/ReadingWithYourKids, @ReadingWithYourKids on Instagram, and @JedlyMagic on X. We have a great YouTube channel, YouTube.com/ReadingWithYourKids. And we love for you to visit our website, ReadingWithYourKids.com. If you are an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of ReadingWithYourKids.com. Find out how you can be a guest here on the podcast. It's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlet fans all over the world about your fantastic children's book. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Lela Nargi. Please be sure to check out The Lonely Goose. I also want to thank Riley Cross. Please be sure to check out The Swamp of Doom. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.